What do you do when you can't fall asleep? I count backwards from 300 by threes. 300, 297, 294. It helps occupy your mind just enough to keep your thoughts from wandering, but it's mundane enough to not make you more awake. I've been using this trick for years and I've only reached the end a couple of the times. It also helps to start with a different number every now and then so you don't get too used to the sequence, and you don't get distracted. That's amazing. I don't think I've ever got to 10 sheep when counting sheep before my mind drifts. So one trick I do when I have bouts of insomnia is find something, usually a slow-paced mobile game, that I will play and only play it until I fall asleep. I will only play the game at this time so I train my mind to know when I play it, it's time to sleep. Sometimes it's so effective I'll turn on the game and instantly feel so tired I just turn it off and fall asleep. Phone on night mode. Right now it's Plague Incorporated. I mentally walk through something that is calming. In my case, that is flying a plane. In my mind, I walk out to the plane, carrying my flight bag. As I get to the plane, I set down my flight bag, unlock the door, climb up, put the key on the dash, enable the battery, set the basic lights, and then climb down and start the walk around. After that, I get my kneeboard out, put the flight bag in the back, climb back up, turn off the lights, and start the pre-flight checklist. After that, I open the window, shout, "Clear," and start the engine. Then, I request permission to taxi to the runway, taxi over to run up, check the engines, taxi in line, request takeoff clearance, and head into the skies. Much of this is theoretical, as I rarely make it through the entire pre-flight checklist. Flying a plane is the most calming thing I know. I usually just let my brain wander. During the day I have to try hard to keep my brain from thinking about random things and getting wildly off topic, but at night, I just stop trying to control my train of thought and eventually I fall asleep. It's kinda like removing a barrier and letting myself finally relax. Allowing my brain to wander like that is very relaxing, but if I do it during the day, it usually makes things crazy and hectic for a minute or two while I focus on getting my train of thought back on topic. Sometimes I catch myself starting random conversations because I already rationalized them in my head and I always find it so funny. Sort of meditate, focus on breathing, in and out but count to 10. Every time I find myself thinking about something else, I restart at 1. These are slow mindful breaths. If I notice I'm holding tension, I make sure to let go when I breath out again. And I don't get mad at myself for not focusing. I just restart at 1. In the very rare occasions I get to 10, I just restart. It's very peaceful. I've had disordered sleep my whole life. When I was really young I'd pick a time and close my eyes and refuse to open them no matter what. As I got older, I found the easiest way to fall asleep is to pretend to be asleep. Also, masturbation and the 4-7-8 breathing technique are helpful. When nothing works I play Sudoku on my phone until I drift off. I make word chains, like I think of a word and then the next word has to start with the last letter of the last word, like dream, mundane, eat, tired, drag, gullible, etc. I give myself extra imaginary points for really good words and ones that end in a less common letter, and it has to be quick fire, the first word that pops into my head, so I'm not really putting any thought into it. It just kind of numbs out everything else that is keeping me awake. What I was taught as a kid and has never failed me is to mentally recount your day backwards in as much detail as possible. Part of it is also trying not to get sidetracked on reflecting on it. That is trying to recall in as much detail having a conversation with someone and what you talked about but not how that made you feel or what you thought about it. Just literally what happened as if you were an external observer. I'm in the process of conditioning myself to fall asleep to a specific soothing, sleep aid song. I went through a million of them to pick one and every time I know I can fall asleep, I put it on. I'm starting to fall asleep faster and faster, although sometimes I have to start the song over if my mind was too busy when I first started. but once it calms down more, starting over helps me get back into the Zen space. Take a deep breath and imagine pulling that breath from your toes to your ankles. Slowly release your breath as you imagine releasing the tension from that area of your body, letting it sink into the mattress. Take another deep breath, imagining drawing that breath from your ankles up to your knees. Slowly release your breath as you imagine releasing the tension from that area of your body, letting it sink into the mattress. Continue up your body in small increments. When you get to the shoulder, start back down at your fingers, then work your way back up and do shoulders a second time. You have to concentrate on the deep breathing and actually release the tension from your body in those increments. Allow your mind to wander if it starts to, but keep breathing, slow and regular. Once you release the tension all the way up to your head, take a full body breath, from your toes to your head, and release slowly. Repeat 5 times. If you are still wide awake, start again from the toes. I've only made it all the way through this process once. Every other time, I fall asleep before I reach the head. Couple of years ago I started imagining a fantasy story when I couldn't sleep. Things like map and factions and whatnot. I couldn't sleep the night after, so I continued. Night after that the same. This fantasy world has been getting built up and getting crazier every night. For years, it's come to the point that there is now a multi-dimensional war between different pantheons of completely made up, multi-dimensional creatures that can control the flow of time and space, create new pocket dimensions that will unjust do a whole bunch of crazy shit. I try to stick to algebraic truths like linear subspaces and all that. And of course I'm a completely badass superpowered main character that takes on armies by himself, but honestly that character has been deviating away from me for like 2 years. One thing that helps is to stop trying. I know it seems counterintuitive. You would think that if you can't sleep, the only logical action would be to put more effort into falling asleep, but I can assure you it only makes things worse. What ends up happening is you end up adding an additional thought for your brain to process, which only worsens the situation. Instead, focus on not thinking at all. Keep your head clear, don't roll around. Just find a comfortable position and stay there. Focus only on being completely still, not in a tensed up kind of way but a very relaxed way. After a short amount of time you should fall asleep. I find that it's so easy to stress out about not being able to sleep, and the stress ends up being what actually keeps you awake all night. However, if you focus on being relaxed, sleep follows on its own. One thing that helps me is I always have a noise in my room. During the summer I have a fan on, and during the winter I have a heater with the built-in fan on. Not only does it keep my room at a comfortable temperature, it also creates just enough sound to minimize sounds outside or in neighboring rooms. Having one continuous sound is less distracting than the large variety of sounds that come from outside my room. I don't sleep well at all without some sort of fan on. Maybe I'm just weird though. I watch YouTube videos about space, usually by a YouTuber called C. His audios are really calming despite the fact the videos make you realize just how ginormous things are out there and how insignificant you are. The largest star reaches Saturn's orbit. The largest black hole engulfs the entirety of the solar system including the start of the Kuiper belt. The largest void, Boat's void, which is 330 million light-years across. It means there's practically nothing for 330 light years. Yet I sleep like a baby most of the time I listen to videos like this. I use and find that what works for me is the Dr. Andrew Weil breathing exercise technique. It slows down your breathing, which forces the rhythm of your heart to slow down, which relaxes the body and mind and helps ease you back to sleep. He says it's like a natural tranquilizer. To do this, place your tongue behind your upper front teeth and the roof of your mouth. Exhale completely through your mouth. Keeping your mouth closed, inhale through your nose for 4 counts. Hold your breath for a count of 7. Exhale completely through your mouth for a count of 8. Repeat this process 3 more times so you do it a total of 4 times. Works for me. This is gonna sound weird, but I love flying. So sometimes I lay down straight on my back, relax, and then imagine I'm in a jet. The engines are spooling up, I feel the rumble of the runway and the feeling of being pushed back in my seat as takeoff roll begins. I imagine the sounds of the engines and the feeling of everything, right through rotation. I feel the instant smoothing as the wheels come off the pavement and then the bump of the gear retracting. Then I just imagine I'm watching Earth fly by underneath me as I'm off to wherever this particular flighter in my mind take me. I'm usually well on my way to being asleep by the time I'm not too far past the end of the runway. That's my usual go-to that works when I can't sleep and need to. If that doesn't work, I smoke a bowl. I've found that if I can't sleep it's because my brain is all over the place with random thoughts, usually frustrating or stressful ones, so I need something to focus on. YouTube has been a massive help in this regard. My go-tos at the moment are game lore videos like Dark Souls. There are so many out there, so it's not hard to find one created by someone with a very calming voice. I make sure I'm in a comfortable, relaxed position in bed and settle in for a video. Sometimes it can take a while for me to drift off, but I don't mind as the videos are really interesting. It's not exactly the same thing, but I've unintentionally conditioned myself to fall asleep watching Game Grumps, so every time I'm ready to fall asleep, I'll throw the new episode up on my phone and 90% of the times will fall asleep halfway through it. So maybe get yourself some sort of ritual and routine to trick your mind into falling asleep too. I imagine myself introducing time travelers from the past to modern life. Concepts like feminism, electricity and trousers, even the layout of houses, private bathrooms, etc. I've not yet managed to explain some bits as I'm not sufficiently informed, like electricity, how cars work, how space travel works. I imagine the porting into my kitchen, and I've never got as far as leaving there. When I was younger I used to have difficulties with falling asleep, little bit of an overthinker. And what I'd used to have to do to help fall asleep was pretend that I was living in a post-apocalyptic Earth that had been overrun by aliens that can only hunt humans at night. The thing is they can't see us, but they can detect movement in the air and they can also read our minds. So the key of not getting caught by the aliens was you had to stay perfectly still while thinking of nothing but blackness while lying in bed. It worked surprisingly well for younger me, but now I've just completely ruined all of that by binge-watching YouTube videos of people explain things like space and philosophy that my brain can't comprehend, so it just shuts down and falls asleep. Thing about something that doesn't really stress me out and I'm interested in. I used to struggle to get to sleep after breaking up with my ex, so I would think about me playing Dark Souls 3, running around in my cool armor and stuff. I don't really play that many video games, but I always liked customizing my character and seeing him swing those different swords, and it always helped me doze off. It's very simple. I like to listen to stories. Well, I am a 30-year-old man, but please don't judge me yet. Someday when my mind is completely saturated and I don't want to listen to something that is interesting, so I just listen to a podcast. Nothing much happens. Bedtime stories. I don't remember even finishing even half of the story. The narrator's voice is so smooth and relaxing that I probably take 7 to 8 minutes, max, to drift into sleep. It's very simple. I like to listen to stories. Well, I am a 30-year-old man, but please don't judge me yet. Someday when my mind is completely saturated and I don't want to listen to something that is interesting, so I just listen to a podcast. Nothing much happens. Bedtime stories. I don't remember even finishing even half of the story. The narrator's voice is so smooth and relaxing that I probably take 7 to 8 minutes, max, to drift into sleep. I go through bouts where I really don't want to sleep at night. I don't think it's a true phobia. I don't get anxiety attacks or anything. I just do everything I can to avoid going to bed, sleep. When I get to the point where I am ready to fight myself on this, I usually listen to the podcast Sleep With Me. I aim the volume low enough that I can hear the rumbling of Scooter's voice, but not actually tell what he's saying. Just hearing another human's voice sometimes helps. I also sleep with cats because I don't like sleeping alone. Weighted blankets, objects can also help force my body to relax. at which point my mind follows. I think I also just avoid sleep when I am feeling touch-starved. I generally dislike touch from other people, so it's hard for me to tell what being touch-starved is like. I close my eyes and try and remember all the details of a journey from one point to another, say, riding my bike 3 suburbs over to see my buddy when I was 21. Where did I start from? The share house in Annandale. Okay, I get out the front door. Would I have turned left or right? Where would I have chosen to cross Parramatta Road? Did I go up Crystal Street or would it be more sensible to go up a side street? Etc. I make the decisions as I go and try and fill in the blanks as I get to a new spot I can only hazily reconstruct. Is that where that little Greek pastry shop is? Or is it further up the hill? There's that chemist here too just before the corner. I retrace my steps mentally for some little scenario like this, and usually fall asleep less than halfway to my destination. I recently rediscovered Jesus Christ Superstar after not hearing it for almost 2 decades. I've always had a little difficulty getting to sleep and usually a method to help stops working after about a week. However, for the past few months I just start singing Judas Heaven on Their Minds and I've yet to make it to the second song. I do what a lot of people have said. Normally I'll start with the color purple. What is purple? A grape. Now what if it had a face? California raisin. Does it drive a car? A scooter? A bus? A California raisin with stick legs casually scooting across a random landscape. What does he for fun? He loves throwing frisbee with his strawberry buddies. I'll get a few scenarios deep with preternatural thoughts like this till I wake up. Read a book with one eye closed. I've done this since I was a kid. As your open eye starts drooping you jump in and out of this story until you're just continuing the story on your own and then you're dreaming it and then asleep. Made all the easier by your readers. I have a super basic one and use the lowest light setting so my parents no longer have to sneak in and turn the lamp off, which would be weird for someone in their 30s. I have anxiety and ADHD so falling asleep is a nightmare for me. Since my mind wanders and I wind up thinking myself into an anxiety attack, I put on a 30+ minute long YouTube video of someone calmly talking, close my eyes, and focus on the words while trying to visualize the video in my head. It gives me something to focus on that's interesting enough to hold my attention but not so interesting that I wind up staying awake watching it. My current favorite channels for this are Summoning Salt and Scott's Stash. Scott the Waz's less exciting second channel where he rambles unedited about pieces of his video game collection. I count down from 99 while I focus on my breathing. Slow deep breaths and every time I exhale I count 1 down. In addition I imagine my muscles relaxing from head to toe. One muscle with every breath. First the neck then my right arm left arm and so on but quite slowly. This distracts you from thoughts that keep you awake and the breathing slows down your heart rate. But try not to focus too hard. It's okay if you miss a number or count 1-2 times it doesn't matter. By that method my heart rate drops quite fast and I usually fall asleep before I reach the number 60 or even earlier. I move to a different spot, usually the couch. This helps my mind reset since it's usually in broken record mode and repeats thoughts for no reason. Actually the work it takes to fall asleep comes before going to bed usually. My regimen is, stop watching TV, playing video games an hour before I intend to fall asleep, take melatonin, may or may not work. Eat, it seems to and it's harmless, do something mindless, like take a shower or play solitaire on my red-tinted phone, snug with my dog, and then go to sleep when I actually feel sleepy. One thing that kills it is thinking about it. If I fall asleep now, I'll get a maximum of _hours of sleep. Just don't. It's okay if you don't fall asleep immediately. I play some sort of tedious game. Maybe some mobile game grinding, maybe load up Pokemon and grind in the tall grass. Really force myself to keep with it until I find myself wanting to just rest my eyes for a moment. That's the sweet spot. When you feel you need to rest your eyes for a moment, you're going to go to sleep at that point. Actively putting effort into trying to sleep directly is counterintuitive. Alternatively, if it's too hot or something, Go for a stroll in the cool night's air or taking a freezing cold shower. At that point the bed goes from hot and uncomfortable to warm and snuggly.